We are talking solar. This is an issue that I've been talking about, it seems like, for the last couple of years. I have someone who is very involved in this and maybe wasn't at one time. Introduce yourself, sir, for those who don't know who you are.
My name is Ian Murphy. I am the owner of the Iron Pig Smokehouse. That's how most people would know me. Live right in Gaylord, Michigan. And there is a development right here, 1,200 acres of solar, industrial solar plant, as we're calling it, right here in Otsego County.
Now, I know we dealt with an issue, the big issue that was brought up, maybe it was winter time, I forget about, was it the state wanting to take land for solar? Was it the DNR? And that got squashed, right?
Yeah, so that article that came out that exposed that was 400 acres adjacent to this development. So it would have been their 1,200 acres on private land, and then the DNR Public Land Trust with another 400 acres. And that is a no go. They've stepped away from that deal.
Okay. Over the last few weeks, I'm getting messages from people who live in the west side of the state, the Thumb, northern Michigan. They're like, my community's having a meeting about solar. This farmland might be solar. They're popping up everywhere. This is because now it's why is this? I'll ask you.
Well, so it's because of Governor Whitmer's 2040 all 100% renewable energy
Yeah.
plan that she came out with, 2 years ago at the State of the State address. And I knew right on its face that that was just going to be completely impossible.
Yeah.
But Public Act 233, which is what's caused a lot of public outcry when it was passed, is what strips away local zoning control. It does and it doesn't, but ultimately that's what it does is it allows a developer. We always say in our case, imagine if a golf course developer came to the local planning commission and the local planning commission said no, and then that developer could go right to the state and have their golf course put in without the locals having anything to say about it.
True.
That's essentially what Public Act 233 has done. Takes away the local control from we, the people at the local level who know best for our communities if we do and we don't want these things. And some communities do and some don't. We just have to happen to have a group of now nearly 30 people here in Otsego County that don't want this industrial solar plant.
And the issue is that the goal is to power the state of Michigan on solar and wind turbines, but the experts that I'm looking at, and even those on the left, many say that you are not going to be successful. It's going to lead to more blackouts. It's going to lead to less energy reliability in the state. If they go through with what they want to do, it's actually probably going to hurt Michigan.
Yeah, anybody with common sense that has lived in Michigan for the last 5 to 10 years can tell you, and the studies and the statistics show this, that Michigan, we're in the bottom five of 50 states for grid reliability. And also, I think the bottom two, maybe even. The Mackinac Center has actually done some great reporting on this. For the number of hours on average per capita in Michigan is one of the highest in the nation. So to think that we can all of a sudden take an unreliable grid, which we pay tons of money for this grid and power in Michigan, regardless of green energy or not. Whitmer's trying to take hydroelectric dams off of the offline, trying to take coal plants offline. We just saw the Trump administration reopen one of those plants last week. And what I try, I'm a libertarian, small L libertarian. And that means I believe in property rights and you should be able to do what you want with your property. And this is where there's a rub here, right? A lot of this is farmland. A lot of this is public land from the DNR. The DNR is now saying that they're pausing all developments, even though there is going to be one going through in Roscommon that I'm going to look into to see if we can stop that one.
Okay.
These farmers have land. Like, so here in Gaylord, for example, two property owners make up the majority of this 2,000 acres that's going to be developed on. Now, they also have another 2,000 acres. And what they are trying to do is lease their land to an energy company to put up solar panels to help pay the property taxes and the maintenance on the other 2,000
Yeah.
acres so that they can keep that family farm land
Yeah.
in their family for generations to come.
Yeah.
And this is the problem I have is
Yeah.
why are we not incentivizing these farmers to be farming on their land again instead of putting up, in my opinion, toxic industrial solar plant panels? I mean, there's heavy metals in these things that just, they're not naturally occurring in our environment up here in northern Michigan.
Yeah, so you really can't blame the farmers. They're in a situation that we're not blaming them. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I went to high school with some of these people here in Gaylord. So I understand, and they explain it very well at the Planning Commission. But this is part of the problem is we have so much of this vacant land that used to be used for farming, and that's now the excuse is, well, it's not being used for anything else, so why don't we use it for this? Well, there's a lot of reasons that that argument is bad, but
yeah.
we've got to consider the feelings of these property owners too.
Okay, so people ask me, how can we stop this? Because they don't want it in their nearby, but the big picture is it will not work. It will not help the state with energy. So that alone, many say, should just end it. Now, if we get a Republican House, Senate, and governor, they could possibly repeal this, correct?
That is correct. And what we have is this is MCL 460.1221. I got to try and remember all these MCLs. I got a
Wow,
couple of
you're
different
good.
lawsuits going on, but
You're good. Yeah.
so that is actually the statute that Public Act 233 was built on. And this is how this case even came to me is property owners directly across the street from this development came to me and said, "Hey, they're trying to get me to sign these setbacks. I feel like they're trying to silence us. What can we do? This Public Act 233 is garbage." And really, what 233 does is sort of what happened during the pandemic with the health department. Is back in the 70s, the legislature wrote a health law. And then fast forward to 2020, they took that health law, changed the wording, or should I say, interpreted the language to limit the gathering of people for any purpose into wearing masks and signs on the doors and signs on the 6 feet apart and vaccines and all that stuff. So I'm not trying to compare the two, but what I'm trying to say is the way that they've interpreted this law and 233 goes beyond the scope of what the legislature had intended. So we have, again, an executive branch agency. The Michigan Public Service Commission is a 4 or 5 member board that's appointed, making decisions that they're not held accountable to like the legislature is, or even like the governor is for that matter. So that's the real issue that I have here.
What are you doing? You said there's, if you can talk about it, litigation right now. How does that play into the whole mix of what's happening or what could maybe delay or slow this down?
Yeah. So when I say that Public Act 233 is a terrible, there's an old saying when your opponent is making a mistake, don't interrupt them. So
Mm.
while I don't like Public Act 233 by any means, it does have some interesting caveats to it. And one of them is all litigation must be settled before the development can continue. That is one thing.
Oh,
The other part of that is, and when you asked a minute ago, what can people do?
yeah.
This is going to sound very crazy and very counterintuitive, but it's precisely what we did here in Otsego County.
Okay.
We are recommending, so there's a new one coming up in Sheboygan, June 18th. I think there's a planning commission meeting up there. What we are recommending to all residents and planning commissioners is that they pass these applications, whether they want them or don't. Pass them. Pass them locally to keep them locally, to challenge them locally. Now, again, I know that sounds counterintuitive because I didn't want this development here in Gaylord, but I went to my local planning commission. We actually have it on video, and I stood up and said, "Hey, I think this is a good idea and you guys should pass this." And they
Okay.
did. One dissenting vote on that entire board. They passed it, which allowed us to challenge it in our local court jurisdiction, which happens to be, again, right here in Otsego County.
Okay.
Versus there is a lawsuit ongoing. I believe it's in the court of claims now with 40 or 50 counties that are challenging Public Act 233. And that started in the court of claims, which that's
Yeah.
the government's court.
Yeah.
So they're already going to get deference there.
Yeah.
So I'm advising everybody, even though you don't want them, I don't want it. I advocated for the planning commission to pass it. Then we can challenge it locally. And I think we already have some residents in Sheboygan County that are ready to challenge this. But that's one of the interesting caveats is all litigation must be settled before one stanchion can go in the ground, one tree can be removed, anything.
That make
So
that makes sense. So, yeah, if have it, pass it, then there can be litigation, and it can't be nothing can be done until that litigation, as we know, litigation, it can go on and on.
it absolutely can. And again, you also get better you get better outcomes at the local level. Our judges are generally locally are elected by the locals. That's why we won. We lost all of our administrative hearings for the Iron Pig when we stayed open. We lost all those administrative hearings. But as soon as we got into a local court with a local judge that's held accountable by the local residents, he said, no, 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 this is completely different. And it just so happens we somehow drew the same judge, Judge Hunter, that we had in our Iron Pig cases. So he understands the line of thinking that we're looking at when we say that the legislature is just giving too much authority, their authority, over to an executive branch agency.
So if it's dragged out into 2026 and for some reason we go a Republican trifecta, they could change it. Is this why this next election cycle, it is going to be so very important for the people of Michigan? Oh,
I lost you there for a
oh,
second.
no, you're good. You're back. I think you're back. Um, oh, yeah, you're back now. Yeah, the elections coming up 2026. It is so very important because I mean, if this does get dragged out, we get a Republican trifecta, things can change. That's why this election is going to be so important coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that entirely. And the other thing too to remember is the longer that these things drag out. So, for example, here in Gaylord, these people have been here. This RWE developer out of Germany originally,
Mhm.
they've been here for at least 2 years spending money developing these things. So
Wow.
when they see that it's going to be even more money paying attorneys, so they've hired the largest attorney firm, Varnum, in Michigan. You go to
Wow.
Grand Rapids, they've got a huge building. The biggest law firm in the state now represents this developer. So they're going to be spending thousands and thousands and thousands of money without getting a single solar panel erected in Otsego County. And
Mm.
that's what we want to try and duplicate in any jurisdiction that does not want these things. Now, I understand there are people that want them. I advocate for personal use. Put solar panels on your home, put wind turbine generators on your home, export that energy back to the grid. That's actually how I think we get to a 100% renewable is by personal home use, exporting it back to the grid.
That's what people ask me sometimes. Why are you I have them on my home. Are you attacking me? And I'm like, absolutely not. You can do what you want on your home.
Yeah, it's at scale that I just say utility scale. When it's at scale, a lot of problems come. There's environmental issues. Then we haven't even talked about how you mine these minerals, where they're made. Now we're finding out that there's, hardware, software hidden in some of these
Yep.
things.
Yep.
It's just, and people just don't want them. The reason this case came to me, a little restaurant owner in Northern Michigan, is because I stood up against the government and I have an amazing attorney who's happened to have done planning and zoning for 25 plus years. And he
Wow.
looked at Public Act 233 and he said, boy, this is a terrible, terrible law. Let's see if we can destroy it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. So if people are in their communities, the one big thing to get out of this, pass it and then work on the fight against it. Once you pass it, and if there is litigation, whatever comes up to slow it down, you're saying.
That's right. And we're looking to actually put together kind of a Q&A session here in Gaylord since we're centrally located in all these locales, Antrim, Roscommon, Crawford County,
Mm.
Presque County, Grant Township in Sheboygan County. All of these places have these things popping up. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get all of our legislators together, like a Senator Hoytanga, Parker Fairburn, Cam Cavett, Ken Borden, a lot of these people, because they honestly don't know what to do. And we have a remedy to at least stop this and hopefully fix this long term if the courts hear the right arguments.
And definitely the local people, because there's people on trustees or townships, they probably feel lost when they're going they don't know as much. So something like that, that could help every and citizens obviously, but the people at the local level making those decisions.
Yeah, and we've got to be careful because there's a lot of incentives at the local level.
True.
Townships, there is money attached to these things.
Yeah.
The developers are offering X amount of dollars per megawatt that they propose to put out. That's the other thing too. So we can't be the almighty dollar can't be the ultimate decider here on these things. So that's just really where we're at. And I'm hoping that we can get the word out so we can stop these things and
Yeah.
challenge Public Act 233.
Yeah, it'd be tempting for a community. Hey, I could get X amount of dollars coming in, and I could see where that would be. I would say tempting for them. Just let's do it, and yeah,
Oh, and equally tempting to say no, we don't want these things. But it's
true.
important to know that if a planning commission denies an application, that developer can do an end around directly to the Michigan Public Service Commission and get cited. Then they get no money. That's part of the crazy thing too. It's a very crazy law.
Wow. Well, I appreciate it. I'll come up to that event if you have it. I'd love it. I'll live stream it as well, and I appreciate you for taking up the fight and taking time with me.